Hello everyone, welcome to yet another day in this the Clown Decade, the decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better. And if you want to keep up with all things Clown Decade, please do subscribe to the channel and of course become a channel member. I mean, what a week, huh? Captain, it's only Wednesday, and I'm finally getting round to talking about the complete and utter embarrassment that is the Your Party launch. After weeks of infighting that obviously I've covered before, one of the MPs, one of the 6 MPs, Adnan Hussein, quit Your Party over persistent infighting, saying that the organisation, which had a commitment to equality, justice and anti-racism, he says as a landlord, and also was in support of banning Israeli fans from going to Birmingham, regrettably found the reality encountered had been far from that vision. The culture surrounding the party had become dominated by persistent infighting, factional competition, and a struggle for power, position and influence, rather than a shared commitment to the common good. Wow, it's crazy. We're finally finding out why Stalin had so many people put into gulags. I mean, there are parents who have their kids doing politics, and the kids just do not understand why, when so many of the left-wing factions seem to agree on 99% of things, there's so much infighting. And then, literally, this is what this video is about. Just look over to Your Party, and it all makes sense. It's all about the vibes. Which vibes do I get on with the most? And when you have Islamo-communist parties, we have about 3 in the UK by the way, including Your Party, you start to understand that there really isn't that much ideological conflict here. It is literally just how do we get the most amount of power as quickly as possible. Like, that's all this is really about. How do we get into government? And their idea is basically all of them want to be as ideologically committed as possible, but those 1% of differences, apparently that's the deal breaker for a lot of them. I mean, that's at least the actual communists in the party. With the socially conservative Muslims, they are just going along for the ride from the looks of it. And there was a great example of this infighting and struggle for power, where before the party had even been created and anyone even knew what it was going to look like, generally the consensus was, oh, get the 2 big names at the top, Corbyn as leader, Sultana as deputy leader. And they were even in talks that while she was still a Labour MP, that this would be the deal. However, she insisted upon herself, and when she left or was kicked out of the Labour Party and was in talks with Your Party, she would only accept if she was co-leader. And this explains why she ended up making her own membership page, why she ended up losing data on all the people who signed up, but did eventually give all the money over. And Corbyn obviously wasn't on board with any of this. In fact, in their first online meeting about whether it would be leadership or dual leadership, Corbyn abstained because he actually wanted to be the leader. He actually asked all the independent Allier MPs to do the same, though they actually voted for the co-leadership rather than Corbyn as leader. It's been said before, but Corbyn was leader of the entire Labour Party, and that was just known as 4 years of total and complete chaos. Believe it or not, the same thing's happening. It's almost like he's not a natural leader. Sultana's struggle for power continued into day 1 of the conference, where it was thrown into chaos after Zara Sultana boycotted the first day. She skipped Saturday's proceedings in solidarity with delegates expelled over links to other parties. Believe it or not, it is incredibly usual for parties to say you can only be a member of one party. If you're a member of another party, you are not allowed to be a member of ours. Nobody checks these things, but the thing is with the Socialist Workers' Party, they are very open about being part of that party. But I've been a member of 2 parties at once before. I think when I joined UKIP, I was still a member of the Liberal Party. I don't think I've been a member of 2 parties since, though I may have been a Tory while I joined Reform, but I'm pretty sure that I left the Tory party beforehand. Either way, point being, nobody checks. But over on the left, they all wear their party allegiances on their sleeve. I mean, this is just how pathetic this whole thing is. Sultana boycotted the first day of Your Party's inaugural conference, throwing the party's first official gathering into chaos amid disagreements with co-founder Jeremy Corbyn over how the party should be run. I.e., Corbyn wants to be king, but Sultana wants them to be king and queen. Corbyn confirmed to journalists on Saturday that he preferred a single leader, and it's likely to stand for the role, but Sultana said she would vote for collective leadership, and that she did not believe parties should be run by sole personalities. See what I mean? It's all vibes. Every single successful party in history, including every single communist one, has a sole leader. It just works. Hierarchy works. But Sultana seems to be stuck in the mind of a 16-year-old. But again, it's all just vibes. Oh, I really like the idea of a flat hierarchy, therefore let's have one. No, that is not how organisations above 5 people work. In a sign of further division within the fledgling movement, a spokesperson for Sultana said she would not be entering the conference hall on Saturday in solidarity with delegates who were expelled over links to other left-wing parties, describing the process as a witch hunt. No, it's just basic party policy. This is genuinely unbelievable. I can't believe how pathetic she is being. And even though there were people that were expelled from the party for being part of another party, they still managed to make it somehow on stage and complain about it.
Because actually, I joined your party like all you did. In the summer, inspired. I built it, I paid my direct debit. You know what happened to me yesterday at 4 p.m? Email telling me I was expelled. No discussion collectively here. I have come because I don't accept that. I think we want collective decision making running through, and this conference decides who's a member and who is not a member.
I mean, you get lots of whooping and cheering effectively in the scenarios, even though it's eminently sensible she shouldn't be there, because all people really hear is, I want to give you the option to vote on things. People in the crowd are basically children, think, oh, that gives me more agency and more freedom. Woo. Let's go. And while there were plenty of speeches, plenty of people went up on stage who were quite visibly trans to make sure that the conference hall knew that they thought that transphobia was bad. I can't believe a left-wing trans person, whatever, doesn't like socially conservative Muslim viewpoints. That is nuts. Let's hear what they have to say.
Hi there, conference. My name is Erin from Glasgow. When this party started, it included 2 MPs who were openly transphobic, one of whom was a landlord.
I think they're both landlords, actually. I think people found out that your party actually has the highest proportion of landlords who are MPs as part of that party, because you had the 4 socially conservative Muslim MPs, all 4 of whom I believe were landlords, with Corbyn and Sultana obviously who aren't. That means 2/3 of the MPs in the party were landlords for an openly communist party. Again, I don't know how this was all missed, but there we go. On the progressive stack, being a landlord is about as bad as being a transphobe from the sounds of this.
This party preaches unity and equality for its working class members.
I'm sorry, I need to stop you there for calling them transphobic from the rostrum. Can you please stick to the motion?
Yeah, that was a pretty common theme throughout these speeches at conference. There were quite a few people who had to be told, please stop going on about people being transphobic, we're trying to do serious politics here.
My name is Joseph, I use she/they pronouns, and I'm speaking for option A, to stand candidates as widely as possible. First, I feel like it's most important to address people's concerns with this option, that it will allow transphobic and racist and otherwise bigoted candidates to stand in the name of your party. As we have seen with the 2 MPs who recently resigned after making transphobic comments.
Participant please speak to the option?
Again, if you didn't get the point, this is definitely a socially progressive party. And while I want to maximise the amount of candidates we have, I want absolutely no transphobia, race and blah blah blah. Problem is, as usual, you are going to spiral down into what is this pure form of transphobia, or not being transphobic, I suppose, not being racist, and the only person you're going to be able to stand is someone like Zara Sultana. And guess what? There aren't actually that many people like Zara Sultana, at least exactly like her. Because, oh, you care way more about housing people than you do about transphobia? Wow, that's not anti-transphobic enough. We are literally seeing the results of these messes already. It's just absolutely crazy. Anyway, getting back to Sultana, on day 2, she made an imperious return of the conference. She had cancelled all interviews, but now journalists were informed she would only be doing a press huddle outside the main hall. They were sent to a live location in a WhatsApp group of journalists set up by Giles. The press pack, which I believe is a spokesman, the press pack could be seen running toward the Your Party co-founder's location and circling her as she glided serenely towards the ACC. And that looked like this.
Those who have been expelled to be reinstated?
Absolutely, they shouldn't have been expelled in the first place. These are groups that don't even run in elections, and if we are here to be the home of the left, a home for all socialists, this is not how you treat members. This is what the Labour Party did, where people were expelled, members were treated just like volunteers, not allowed to actually make decisions and just thrown on the scrap heap.
You get the idea there, you pretty much know what she's going to say. And this whole charade of the journalists have to follow me, that's going to do untold wonders to her ego that is already vastly overinflated, considering she's not actually particularly smart and clearly not particularly good at playing Machiavellian politics. Having said that, though she had spent the past few months campaigning for the party to be co-led by herself and Corbyn, when it became clear this would no longer be an option, Sultana switched to backing collective leadership, the model under which your party would be led by a central executive committee rather than modelled backed by Corbyn, that of a traditional single-party leader. On Sunday morning, it was announced that the collective leadership proposal had won, with 52% of members voting against 48% for single leadership, and turnout was around 16%. So, these people say, oh, we should never have had Brexit because, only 32% of people actually voted for Brexit. Well, only 8% here voted for collective leadership, therefore we should have a single leader. If that's actually unironically used as an argument, I will laugh quite hard. Sultana said in her speech to the conference that she did not view this as her victory, even though it was. The battle over the party's leadership structure was a proxy war between Sultana's camp and Corbyn's camp, with Sultana winning. Again, this is despite her being terrible at Machiavellian politics. It just means Corbyn is even worse, which is pretty obvious, especially when we get to the Owen Jones interviews, which are probably the most revealing interviews of this entire segment.
You asked yesterday about kind of policies for the country, and you said nationalise the entire economy. So just wondering, what does that look like?
That looks like a socialist transformation of the country where we nationalise utilities, we nationalise energy, we nationalise transport, we nationalise communications, including the internet, but we also have to broaden our horizons.
But not the entire economy, though.
Yeah, because it's pretty obvious that nationalise the economy to most socialists just means public utilities. It doesn't necessarily mean, you need to nationalise Sony Entertainment or, car companies, Jaguar Land Rover, something like that. But, what does Zara Sultana say?
So we have to have a socialist economy that includes workers running their workplaces through cooperatives. It means public services run for profit, not need, with, workers and users on the boards of those organisations.
Democratic ownership.
I mean, again, with Zara Sultana, it's literally all just vibes. Oh, whatever sounds good and it sounds like the workers are in charge, that's what I want. Oh, worker cooperatives, yeah, I've heard Hassan Piker and Gary Stevenson talk about that. I'll go down that route. But it didn't really answer anything else. Like, when Owen Jones says the entire economy, he means things that he doesn't even think necessarily need nationalising.
And it means the entire economy run by workers, not the billionaires and the corporations that run it today.
So that mean I'm just interested because I mean like kiosks, like small little cafe kiosks. That kind of
workers' cooperatives.
Listen, Yugoslavia made literally the most capitalist invention ever, which was a modular kiosk, which could be as small or as large as they wanted. And what they accidentally found was they had made basically capitalism for the lower classes. And the businesses ranged from flower shops to cafes to ticket booths. Typical small enterprise, let's say capitalistic ventures from entrepreneurs. And in a communist state like Yugoslavia, even they kept accidentally making opportunities for people to run small-scale capitalistic ventures that obviously could expand. Funny part of it is that typically they were run by one or two people as well. You didn't need many people to actually run these well. And really the only difference between Yugoslavia's kiosks and what apparently Sultana wants is that as soon as it's more than one person working, every decision by decree of the state has to be agreed upon by every worker. I mean, I'm not being funny here, but I don't know if this is just because I've been in jobs, but typically I don't really care what the boss's what direction they go, what decisions they make. I just do the work they ask me to. At the end of the day, that's what I'm paid a wage for. I'll give advice and say why something might not be possible or a bad idea, but that doesn't mean that I then have to vote with everyone else for higher pay or something like that. I could just move jobs. And guess what? In Yugoslavia, you could move from one job at one kiosk to another.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm just interested because you said the entire. I'm just trying to. I think it's fascinating.
The entire economy under the control of workers.
Okay.
whether that is nationalisation, workers' cooperation.
Socialisation.
And when we look at especially things like food, that means looking at the entire food production system and that being under the control of workers.
Goodness me. I mean, farmers are pretty well set up in the way they run things, to be quite honest. In fact, what farmers want is less government oversight. This is going to make that even worse. But then on top of that, obviously when Zara Sultana is thinking of the food production system, she's pretty much only thinking of Tesco, supermarkets, food markets. And again, we've seen what unions do to these businesses, and it makes them pretty much impossible to run. And now we have food inflation at 5%, way above base rate inflation, partially because there's constant, and I mean constant, court cases basically about, well, why are people in the shops being paid less than warehouse workers, when the answer is very obvious: because less people want to be warehouse workers, because it's slightly harder work, there's less socialisation. And then again, even having said that, when it comes to the next case, they actually found that half the warehouse workers were women anyway, and yet still it was somehow misogynistic. Again, this party wants more of the Equality Act, more government decree on what pay should be, etc, etc. We already have the most generous minimum wage in the world, and the socialists want to go way beyond that. They basically already have their world. It's the world they said they wanted in, 2010, what have you. Still not good enough. Lesson to be learned there. Anyway, that was all even too much for Owen Jones, who was constantly trying to say, listen, can you just not say that you want cafes nationalised? And it was so bad that even Adnan Hussein had to say, I don't think we want to be North Korea. I don't know what these people expected when they joined the likes of Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana. That's exactly what they want. Anyway, Owen Jones then also interviewed Jeremy Corbyn and asked what he thought of nationalising the economy and what that meant.
On economics, because I was asked yesterday by colleagues at Navarra, kind of what policies would you put to the electorate? And she said, and this is a direct quote, she said, nationalise the entire economy. What do you think of that?
I'm not sure what that means.
I mean, it's bad when even Owen Jones is laughing in agreement, because Owen Jones has said things similar to nationalise the entire economy. I mean, it's crazy to me. Even Jeremy Corbyn, who's seen by a lot of the centre-right and the right as just being loopy, even he knows that saying nationalise the entire economy is just crazy. Because Corbyn will have actually read some Marx and understood that you have to go from capitalism into a socialist system, whereas Sultana hasn't read Marx and just goes off vibes. Unironically, Corbyn is smarter than Sultana, to the surprise of no one.
I'm honestly not sure. I would want to see public ownership of major industries like energy and public services like mail, rail and water. And I would want to see the sort of stuff that John McDonnell and I worked out before the 17 and 19 elections, which is on National Investment Bank.
And honestly, at this point, in hindsight of the 2017-2019 election manifestos, they don't even seem that bad compared to what we actually got after it. Unironically, we might be in a slightly better world if we got Corbyn in 2019. Being hyperbolic, of course, it'd still be a disaster. But at least it would be old-fashioned socialism with... Basically, it'd be like going back to the 70s, and at least we know the blueprint for getting out of that. When it comes to whatever mess we're in now, it's a bit more difficult to try and pin down exactly what needs to be done, though a lot of people are of the understanding that it's due to, largely, human rights laws that need to be amended.
And that's the role for it, because I think we've also got to be clear the priority is inequality and poverty in this country. The priority is poverty-stricken children, rough sleeping homeless.
No, actually, it's transphobia, and I guess landlordism as well. Again, it's all vibes. Which priority do you like the most? Whichever I complain about makes me feel, the best. And in Corbyn's world, it's complaining about public utilities being privatised. In Sultana's world, it's transphobia, homophobia, racism, blah, blah, blah. So she doesn't really think of the economics of it, she just thinks of the social side of it, and it's why a lot of infighting goes on, because everyone will have their pet issue that they basically want the whole party to be about. And another point is that a lot of people really only want Jeremy Corbyn in charge, not because of what his priorities are or anything like that, but basically just because he's a celebrity. Like, one thing that the left kind of get is that, yeah, politics is basically a popularity contest. I say kind of get because they still voted for collective leadership, which again, I'd love to know a party where that's actually worked. Because your party is another example of it not working before it's even started. And so they push this celebrity up, feed their ego, what have you, while the workings in the underneath the party are trying to perfect whatever vibes they see fit. And the leader doesn't really need to know or care about that. And it's part of the reason that Jeremy Corbyn's Labour ended up with a load of factionalism yet again. Because he was just at the top, having his ego fed, answering questions about the economy that he's comfortable with, while the rest of the party were basically infighting, with even more factions, because obviously the centre-left of the Labour Party were like, this guy's crazy, we need to get rid of Momentum and all that. Momentum were having their own infights over which is worse, homophobia or racism, because transphobia wasn't a massive thing yet.
And from this budget, a tax system that brings 500,000 more people into tax who are the lowest earners. They're on 12,000 a year. They shouldn't be paying tax. They shouldn't be paying any tax at all.
Damn, I kind of agree with Corbyn there. I've been asking for ages for the thresholds to be shoved up. Well done, Corbyn.
So I think the priorities have got to be ending poverty and inequality in our society. And that's why I suggested in my speech this morning that we could use our knowledge and skill level amongst our membership for a disabled persons commission on the need for reform of disability benefits and disability opportunities in Britain.
Oh, God. I mean, yeah, we do need total reform on PIP payments. I do completely agree with that, along with Motability. I do not trust that your party will appoint anyone who says it needs to be reformed to be more strict, however. So instantly lost me there. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Corbyn. Anyway, Mr. Jones also asked about the infighting of the party. Here's what Zara Sultana had to say.
I think a lot of people look at this, if I'm honest, and a lot of normies, if you like.
Hold on a second, sir. That's cultural appropriation. That's our word.
And they just go, this is too much. This is. But you're painting a picture of a kind of very toxic, just internally divided place, which a lot of people just think life's too short. There's Green Party, they're better vibes. Why should I waste my time?
That's a really good question, and generally, as we will see in polling after all this, that's what the normies are doing. But you've got to realise that the Green vote isn't just millennial socialists. There's also a bunch of kind of centre-left boomers that are just bored of Labour and don't see another alternative and would never be caught dead voting for Lib Dems or Tories.
Because this is a party worth fighting for. If we should just settle with what already exists, I don't think we would have fought for the NHS and won that.
I mean, the NHS was a cross-party creation. It was originally planned by a Tory and then implemented by Clement Attlee, so not exactly a great example. Also, the funny part of that is that the NHS does exist and everyone just settles for it, so again, terrible example.
If people just were told, you know what, the status quo is what it is, why should you fight for anything different? Why should you fight for something better? That is not the politics I come from. And what I believe is that if we establish democratic foundations, if we have a party that is led by its members, that is explicitly socialist, that is going to build social power in our communities, as well as being an electoral vehicle, then we can change this country for the better.
Yeah, the problem you have here is that that's everything that the Green Party say they are too. They are explicitly socialist. They have a leadership election every 2 years, for goodness sake. It is basically run by the members. Zach Polanski just says what the members think with a loud megaphone, and it's just far more successful. There's barely any factionalism, though it will probably bubble up over time, as it always does with these left-wing parties. The reason Zach Polanski is actually doing so well as a left-wing activist at the top of the Green Party is basically because he doesn't say anything of substance. We can go through him in another video, and I've gone through him in plenty of previous videos, but my goodness, I will reference that Rest is Politics interview where he's asked basically what are your thoughts on the economy, who's your favourite economist, what have you, and he chooses Grace Blakeley, Richard Murphy and Gary Stevenson, who are three people I've gone through on this channel to basically say, yeah, they basically know nothing about economics, this is quite embarrassing actually. Anyway, what was Corbyn's view on this?
There's been a bumpy road. Of that we all agree.
Why? Why is it big? What's the issue? What's the main, how do you sum up what's happening?
I think we should have been more specific and clearer on the launch, on the arrangements for it. It was a shame that there were, in effect, how should I put it, premature launches made and premature announcements made.
Yeah, this is Corbyn basically very, very nicely saying Zara Sultana jumped the gun and it ruined everyone and the plans that they had for the launch and to make it coherent, because effectively, clearly what was happening behind the scenes was Basically, Zara Sultana was invited on and then tried to take over. That's basically what happened. And Jeremy Corbyn's trying his best not to annoy Zara Sultana's camp, because they effectively make up half the party. And it's just ended up in endless factionalism. I mean, on the bright side, I suppose, this is damaging the reputation of millennial socialists, and ultimately their entire power is based on vibes. What's cool, what's good to vote for, blah, blah, blah. They don't think about economics, they don't think about morality, they don't think about politics. They just think, what makes me feel good in the moment? This stuff has not. Unfortunately, they've got the alternative of the Green Party to go to. Hopefully that will die a death too, but who knows?
And that confused and upset a lot of people. We have now, I think, got to a very good place. We've now got the conference going on here, which is where we are at the moment, and we've got rapidly rising, well over 50,000 paid up members of the party. So we've now got a sustainable basis for our work and our activity.
It's basically try and share the good PR from now on. Again, Corbyn's got experience in politics. He's been a party leader before, for goodness sake. He understands the basics of this, of just don't admit on camera that it's all gone wrong. Whereas obviously Zara Sultana's not quite that forward thinking, we'll say. The more interesting question though is how are they different from any other left-wing party like, oh, I don't know, the Greens?
How would you say this is why your party is so distinct from the Green Party, that this is where you should support?
Distinctly socialist party, distinctly socialist aims, similar aims on sustainability and environment, probably because the Green Party's positions seem unclear to me on international policies. I think are...
Is it? Not really. They seem to want the same, don't have American imperial aims supported effectively. Palestine for the win. Generally, they seem to be more on the side of Ukraine, but both are explicitly socialist, both are explicitly pro-environmental issues, blah, blah, blah. Again, agree on 95% of the same things. It's all just vibes.
Ours are much clearer in the sense of peace, disarmament, total support for Palestine, but also an end to the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, that's pretty much what the Greens want. Yeah, you're right. How are you different? A bit more focus on international issues. Okay, fine.
What relationship do you think you'd have with the Green Party?
Well, I know Zach, I talk to him, I know a lot of people in the Green Party in my own community, and generally we get along quite well. I think at a local level, your party will be campaigning with Greens on a number of local issues, but we will be distinctive in our much stronger social justice political message. The Green Party is probably very broad on economic and social thinking. I suspect that the newer members are probably well to the left of the older members in the Green Party.
He's actually probably right there, to be fair, but then at that point, if the Green Party was on like 30,000, 40,000 members, it shot up to over 100,000. Most of the party's new members are to the left. In fact, that's why a lot of your party members have just gone, meh, forget that, we're going over to the Greens. So alright, they're a bit more broad. Turns out people don't really mind. I mean, just even looking at the most recent hypothetical polling, your party's dropped by half. At first it was on 10 to 12%, then it dropped down to 8%, now it's down to 4% with, oh, look at that, the Greens rising. And the Greens in second place in some polls. Having said that, Tories are making a bit of a comeback, so they're now going back to third, but either way, Zach Polanski's very good at what he does, because all he does is have a big megaphone and say standard 2015 blue pills. Great. That's what we're up against. I'm fine with that. Non-zero chance after all this, by the way, that there's a Lib Dem Green coalition in, like, the 2030s. That could actually happen, because ultimately both of those parties don't really have any sort of coherent ideological, pathway forward. Neither does your party, to be fair. There's no real story to tell beyond rich, bad, poor, good. It's classic postmodern neo-Marxism. It comes in so many forms, though, that people just have a go at each other over it, and it's good to see that the latest attempt to try and professionalise it has died a death. Unfortunately, it's made the slightly more professional side of it even stronger. And again, what's happened to Corbyn will happen to Zelensky one day, if, or when actually, he stops actually being able to use his megaphone effectively and people get bored of him, they'll cast him aside. Nobody thought Corbyn mania was going to end, and it's ended. So same will happen with Polanski in 5 to 10 years. Anyway, I think with that we will leave it there. So thank you all very much for watching. If you enjoy what I do, please do subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment. There is, of course, also the opportunity to become a channel member and leave super chats, super thanks as you see fit. In terms of streaming, tonight it's the gaming stream, Deus Ex, Human Revolution. Friday it's Wolves of Westminster podcast, and Saturday it's Laughing at the Guardian with some Warman. And that's everything for now, so videos out as and when I can make them. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.